It was 7:43 p.m. on a Saturday night in October when I read the text message that would change everything. I was standing in my bedroom, wearing the navy blue dress I'd spent 2 hours picking out, my pearl necklace already clasped around my neck. The gift I'd bought sat on the bed, wrapped in expensive silver paper, $850 worth of crystal glassware from Tiffany's. The party started at 8:30. I'd been ready since 7, pacing, excited. My phone buzzed. Michael, my son. Mom, don't come. My in-laws don't want you there. I read it once, twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. My hands started shaking. I could hear my own breathing, heavy and uneven in the silence of that empty room. The air conditioning hummed. Outside, I heard a car door slam. Someone else going somewhere they were actually wanted. Don't come. To the party I paid for, to the house I bought, to celebrate with the people whose mortgage I'd been covering for 18 months. But before I tell you what I did next, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like an ATM to your own family? If you have, drop a comment below and hit that like button because you're going to want to hear how this story ends. What they didn't know was that in 72 hours, I'd have the power to take it all back. Every single dollar. Every single lie. Everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started, because you need to understand how a successful businesswoman who built a consulting firm from nothing, who negotiated million-dollar contracts without blinking, ended up being treated like a human checkbook by her own son. It was 3 years earlier, on a bright Sunday morning in May. I remember the exact date, May 12th, because it was Mother's Day. Michael brought Emily to brunch at the Riverside Inn, this beautiful restaurant overlooking the water that I'd taken him to every birthday since he was 12. She was wearing a white sundress, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. And when she smiled, I thought, finally, my son found someone who makes him happy. Michael had been through 2 difficult relationships before Emily. The first girl, Jessica, broke his heart senior year of college. The second, Amanda, well, let's just say she was more interested in his last name than in him. So when Emily showed up, sweet, attentive, laughing at his jokes, asking me questions about my business, I was relieved, grateful even. "Mrs. Morrison," she said that day, her hand on my arm. "Michael talks about you constantly. He says you're the strongest woman he knows." Strongest. That word stuck with me. Nobody had called me strong in a while. My husband, David, had passed away 4 years earlier from a sudden heart attack. He was only 62. After he died, I threw myself into work, grew the business, but at home, I ate dinner alone. I went to bed alone. I woke up alone. Having Michael call more often, having Emily send me little text messages, thinking of you, with heart emojis, it filled something. A space I didn't even realize was still empty. 6 months later, they got engaged. November 3rd. I remember because it was exactly 1 week before what would have been David's and my 42nd anniversary. Michael called me at 9:01 p.m., breathless with excitement. "Mom, I did it. I asked her. She said yes," I cried. Happy tears. I thought David would have loved her too. The wedding was beautiful. June 15th the following year at Garden Estate, this gorgeous venue with white columns and rose gardens. I paid for most of it. The venue alone was $28,000. The catering, another $19,500. The flowers, the photographer, the band, when it was all added up, I'd contributed $67,000 to their wedding. They were young, just starting out. Michael was working as a marketing coordinator, making $52,000 a year. Emily was a dental hygienist, pulling in about $48,000. Combined, they were doing okay, but not dream wedding okay. "Mom, you don't have to do this," Michael said when I handed him the check for the deposit. "I want to," I told him, and I meant it. "You're my only son. I want you to start your marriage without debt hanging over your head." Emily hugged me so tight that day. "Thank you, Helen," she whispered. "You're incredible. Incredible. Strong." These were words I'd built my whole identity around. After David died, after I took over the business completely, After I turned our small consulting firm into something that brought in $1.2 million annually, I needed to be those things. Strong, incredible, needed. The first year of their marriage was good. They lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Riverside District, about 20 minutes from my house. I'd go over for dinner every other Sunday. Emily would cook, nothing fancy, usually pasta or chicken, and we'd sit around their little dining table and talk. Michael would tell me about his projects at work. Emily would share stories about her patients. I felt included. I felt like I mattered. Then Emily's parents entered the picture. I'd met Margaret and Thomas briefly at the wedding. Margaret was a tall woman with gray hair she kept in a tight bun, always wearing pearls. Thomas was quieter, a retired accountant who spent most of his time on the golf course. They lived in Florida, in a small condo they'd bought when they retired. They seemed nice enough at the wedding, polite, but distant. I didn't think much of it. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March, almost exactly 2 years ago, when Michael called me. "Mom, can we talk? Emily and I need to ask you something." My stomach tightened. That tone, careful, measured. It's never good news. They came over that evening. 6:30 p.m. I'd made coffee, set out some cookies I'd picked up from the bakery. We sat in my living room, the one David and I had decorated together 20 years ago, leather couches, family photos on the mantel. "So," Michael started, glancing at Emily. She nodded, encouraging him. "Emily's parents are getting older. They're both 74 now. Their condo in Florida, it's small, only 900 square feet, and with Thomas's mobility issues, the stairs are getting hard for him." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "Are they thinking of moving to a single-level place?" "Actually," Emily jumped in, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "We were thinking they could move here, to be closer to us, to family." I smiled. "That's wonderful. Having family nearby is so important, especially as we age. The thing is," Michael continued, "housing prices here are insane. A decent, single-level home in a safe neighborhood with good access to medical facilities, we're looking at $600,000 minimum. They can sell their condo in Florida, but they'll only get about $180,000 for it, maybe $200,000 if they're lucky." I saw where this was going. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. "They'd need help with the down payment," I said, filling in the blank. "We can't afford it, Mom," Michael said, his voice strained. "We're still paying off student loans. We want to start trying for kids soon, and we need to save for that. But Emily's worried about her parents. They're struggling down there, and we just want to help them. Have you ever been in a position where saying no feels impossible? Where you know, somewhere deep down, that you're being used, but the fear of seeming selfish, of being called heartless, it's stronger than your common sense? Drop a comment if you know what I'm talking about." "How much would they need?" I asked. Emily's face lit up. "Really? You'd consider helping?" "I want to understand the full picture first," I said, trying to sound businesslike, rational. Michael pulled out his phone, showing me listings he'd saved. "There's this beautiful place on Oakmont Drive. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, single level, updated kitchen. It's listed at $615,000. With a 20% down payment, that's $123,000. They'd have $200,000 from their condo sale, which covers the down payment plus closing costs, but they'd still need help with moving expenses, furniture, some updates to make it accessible for Thomas's wheelchair." "How much are we talking total?" I asked. "Maybe $40,000, Michael said. "To cover everything comfortably?" $40,000. I had it. The business was doing well. I just closed a contract with a healthcare network worth $340,000. But still, this was Emily's parents, people I barely knew. "Let me think about it," I told them. Emily reached across and took my hand. Her fingers were warm. "Helen, I know this is a huge ask, but you've always said family comes first. My parents, they're good people. They worked their whole lives. My dad was an accountant for 38 years. My mom was a teacher. They deserve to retire somewhere comfortable, somewhere safe. Family comes first." Those were my words. Words I'd said 100 times after David died, trying to hold on to the one thing I had left, my son. 3 days later, I called Michael. "I'll help," I said. The joy in his voice, the way Emily got on the phone crying, thanking me, calling me a blessing, it felt good. I felt needed, valuable, important. But here's what I didn't know, that $40,000 was just the beginning. What I also didn't know was that within 6 months, that number would triple. That I'd be signing documents I didn't fully read. That my name would end up on paperwork I didn't understand the implications of. And I definitely didn't know that on a Saturday night in October, I'd be standing in my bedroom, dressed for a party I paid for, reading a text message that said I wasn't welcome. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me tell you about the signs. The red flags I ignored. The moments when I should have known something was wrong, but convinced myself I was just being paranoid, just being difficult, just being a worried mother who needed to let her son live his own life. Because looking back now, the signs were everywhere. The first sign came exactly 2 weeks after I wired the $40,000. It was a Thursday evening, April 18th, around 7:15 p.m. I'd stopped by Michael and Emily's apartment with some homemade lasagna. I used to do that, cook extra and bring it over, trying to help them save money on groceries. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. I could hear voices inside, laughter. Finally, Emily opened the door, but only halfway, her body blocking the entrance. "Oh, Helen, hi," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We weren't expecting you." "I brought dinner," I said, holding up the glass dish. "Your favorite, extra cheese." "That's sweet, but we actually just ordered pizza. My parents are here on FaceTime, and we're having family time." Family time. The words hit me strange, but I pushed it aside. "Oh, wonderful! I'd love to say hi to Margaret and Thomas, thank them for trusting me with—" "Actually, now's not a great time," Emily interrupted, taking the lasagna from my hands. "But thank you for this. We'll have it tomorrow." The door closed, not slammed, but closed firmly. I stood there in the hallway for a full 30 seconds, staring at that white door with the apartment number 304 in brass letters, hearing the laughter resume inside. On the drive home, I told myself I was overreacting. They were busy. They were talking to her parents. It was fine, but a small voice in my head whispered, "You're family too, aren't you?" The second sign came 3 weeks later, May 9th, at a Sunday brunch. We were at Porter's Cafe. This place Emily loved because they made fresh squeezed orange juice. Margaret and Thomas had flown in to look at houses, and Michael had arranged for all of us to meet. I arrived at 10 a.m. sharp. They were already seated, the 4 of them, at a table clearly set for 4. No extra chair, no extra place setting. "Oh, Helen," Michael said, looking up surprised. "I thought you said you couldn't make it." "No, I said I'd be here at 10 I replied, confused. "I confirmed yesterday, remember?" An awkward silence. The hostess scrambled to bring another chair, wedging it at the end of the table. I sat there, sticking out, literally on the corner, while the 4 of them formed a neat square. Margaret smiled at me, tight-lipped. "Helen, so kind of you to join us. We were just discussing the house on Oakmont Drive. The inspection came back clean." "That's wonderful," I said. "I'm so glad the process is moving smoothly." "Yes, well, we're very grateful for your investment," Thomas said, not looking up from his menu. Investment, not help, not generosity. Investment. "Of course," I said quietly. The conversation moved on without me. They talked about furniture arrangements, about which bedroom would be Margaret's sewing room, about hiring landscapers. Emily showed them photos on her phone. Michael laughed at something his father-in-law said. I sat there, sipping my orange juice that cost $7, watching my son bond with people who couldn't even remember to save me a proper seat. When the check came, it sat in the middle of the table. Nobody reached for it. Finally, I did. $94 for 5 people. As I placed my credit card down, Margaret said, "Oh, you're paying. How lovely. Thomas, isn't that lovely?" On the drive home, my friend Barbara called. She'd been my business partner for 15 years, sharp as a tack, doesn't miss anything. "How was brunch with the family?" she asked. I told her everything, trying to keep my voice steady. When I finished, There was a pause. "Helen," she said carefully, "do you notice how much you're giving and how little you're getting back?" "They're grateful," I said defensively. "They said thank you. Saying thank you and showing respect are two different things. When's the last time they took you out? When's the last time they paid?" I couldn't answer. "Just be careful," Barbara said. "I've seen this before. People who see kindness as weakness." "You don't know them like I do," I said. "But here's the truth. I didn't really know them either, did I?" The third sign was worse. It was June 23rd, a Friday afternoon. The house closing was scheduled for Monday, June 26th. I was at work when Michael called. "Mom, hey, quick question. Can you come to the closing on Monday?" "Of course," I said. "What time?" 2 p.m. at Riverside Title Company. But here's the thing. The down payment, we're a little short." My stomach dropped. "Short? How short?" "The closing costs came in higher than expected. We need another $18,000. $18,000. On top of the $40,000 I'd already given." "Michael, that's a significant amount. Why didn't anyone mention this earlier?" "It just came up, Mom. The title company sent the final numbers yesterday. Margaret and Thomas, they're panicking. They already gave notice on their Florida condo. They've got nowhere to go if this falls through." I closed my eyes. My office suddenly felt too small, too hot. "Let me call you back." I called my financial advisor, Richard. We'd worked together for 12 years. He pulled up my accounts. "You've got the liquidity," he said. "But Helen, you're depleting your accessible cash reserves pretty aggressively. Is this a business investment?" "It's family," I said. "Family isn't always a good investment," he replied. "Just saying." Everyone was saying. Everyone was warning me. But when you're lonely, when you're 66 years old and your husband is dead, and your son is the only immediate family you have left, you don't hear warnings. You hear judgment. You hear people telling you you're not enough, that you need to give more, be more, do more to earn your place. I wired the $18,000 that afternoon. At the closing on Monday, I sat in a conference room with wood-paneled walls and signed papers I didn't fully read. The title agent, a woman named Patricia with red reading glasses, kept sliding documents in front of me. "Sign here, Mrs. Morrison, and here, initial here." "What am I signing?" I asked at one point. "Standard closing documents," Patricia said. "You're listed as a co-signer on the mortgage since you're providing significant financial assistance." "Co-signer?" I looked at Michael. "I thought I was just helping with the down payment." "It's just a formality, Mom," Michael said, his hand on my shoulder. "The bank needs assurance. It doesn't mean anything." "Doesn't mean anything." Those words would come back to haunt me. I signed, page after page, my name, Helen Morrison, in blue ink, over and over. When it was done, Margaret hugged me. "You're a saint," she said. A saint. Not a mother-in-law, not family, a saint. Someone who gives without expecting anything back. Someone whose purpose is to serve. The fourth sign happened at the housewarming party, the first one, a small gathering in July. July 14th. I remember because it was Bastille Day, and I'd made a joke about it being a day of revolution. Nobody laughed. The party started at 6 p.m. I arrived at 5:45, bringing a pot of my signature beef stew and a bottle of expensive wine, a $120 Cabernet Sauvignon. Emily answered the door in a beautiful new dress, sage green, fitted. I later found out it cost $340. Bought on a credit card I didn't know existed yet. "Helen, come in, come in." The house looked stunning. New furniture everywhere, a sectional sofa that must have cost $4,000, a dining table that sat 8, artwork on the walls, everything pristine, coordinated, expensive. "This is beautiful," I said, setting down my contributions in the kitchen. "Thank you. Mom and I went shopping last week. It was so fun." Mom. She meant Margaret. Other guests arrived, neighbors mostly. Margaret and Thomas's friends from their old golf club who'd driven up from Florida. Emily's co-workers from the dental office. I knew exactly 3 people in that room, Michael, Emily, and myself. I tried to mingle. I introduced myself to a couple by the fireplace. "Hi, I'm Helen, Michael's mother." "Oh, how nice," the woman said. "Are you visiting from out of town?" "No, I live about 20 minutes away." "Oh," an awkward pause. "Well, isn't this house just gorgeous? Margaret was telling us about all the updates they're planning." Margaret, not me. Margaret was holding court, the queen in her new castle, telling everyone about the chef's kitchen she wanted to install, the sunroom addition, the landscaping project. Projects that would cost tens of thousands of dollars. Money she didn't have. I found Michael in the garage, showing off Thomas's new tool collection to some men. "Hey, Mom," he said, barely glancing at me. "You doing okay?" "I'm fine. I just wanted to check, are you planning to say anything about how this all came together?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, a thank you? An acknowledgement? I know you don't want to make it awkward, but..." "Mom, not now. We're celebrating." "We're. Not Margaret and Thomas. We're." As if he was part of their unit now, and I was the outsider. I left at 8 p.m. Nobody noticed. My friend Linda called me that night. She'd been my neighbor for 18 years, watched Michael grow up. "How was the party?" she asked. I started crying, just broke down on the phone. "Oh, honey," Linda said, "talk to me." I told her everything. The money, the closed doors, the feeling of being erased. "Helen, you need to protect yourself," Linda said. "This isn't right. You're being used." "They're not using me. They're adjusting. It's a lot of change." "It's been months. At some point, adjustment becomes their permanent behavior. And you've taught them that this is okay." "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "You set boundaries. You say no. You stop giving until they start appreciating." But I didn't. Because the thought of Michael pulling away, of losing the only family I had left, it terrified me more than being used. The fifth sign was the forgotten birthday. My birthday. September 3rd. I turned 67. I woke up that morning to silence. No call. No text. By noon, nothing. By 3 p.m. I called Michael. "Hey, Mom, what's up? I'm at work." "I just wanted to hear your voice," I said, waiting, hoping he'd remember. "Yeah, things are crazy here. Can I call you later?" "Sure, honey." He didn't call later. At 9 p.m., I texted him, "Thank you for the birthday wishes." 3 dots appeared, stopped, appeared again. "Oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. Happy birthday. Things have been insane. I'll make it up to you." The next day, an Amazon gift card arrived via email. $50. Generic message. "Happy birthday. Love, Michael, Emily, Margaret, and Thomas." Margaret and Thomas. Their names on my birthday gift from my own son. I cried myself to sleep that night. Not because of the gift card, because I finally understood what I'd become. An ATM. A convenience. A resource. But what I discovered 2 weeks later would make all of these signs look like nothing. What I found out would explain everything, and it would give me the power to change the entire story. Want to know what I discovered? Stay with me, because this is where things get really intense. September turned into October, and the humiliations came faster, harder, like an avalanche picking up speed. The 6th incident happened on October 2nd, a Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. I was at Trader Joe's doing my weekly grocery shopping when I ran into Emily's coworker, a dental hygienist named Rachel. "Oh, Helen, hi," she said, pushing her cart toward me. "I didn't know you shopped here too." "Every Wednesday," I said, smiling. "How are you?" "Good. Hey, I wanted to thank you again for hosting us last month. Your beach house in Malibu is absolutely gorgeous." My blood went cold. "I'm sorry. What?" "The beach house? Emily invited a bunch of us for a long weekend in September. She said it was your place, that you let them use it whenever they want." "I don't own a beach house. I've never owned a beach house." "Oh, right," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." As soon as Rachel walked away, I sat down on a bench outside the store and called Michael. It went to voicemail. I called Emily. Voicemail. I called again and again. Finally, at 2 p.m., Emily texted, "At work, can't talk. What's up?" I typed, "Did you rent a beach house and tell people it was mine?" 3 dots. Then, "We used your credit card for a rental. Wanted to treat my parents. You said we could use it for emergencies. A beach house rental is not an emergency. I pulled up my credit card statement on my phone, scrolling through charges I'd been too busy to check carefully. There it was. Coastal Escapes Vacation Rentals, $4,200 for 4 nights. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. That was not an emergency. You didn't ask. You would have said yes anyway. Don't make this a big deal. Don't make this a big deal. I sat there in the Trader Joe's parking lot, staring at those words, feeling something inside me crack. Not break, crack. Like ice on a frozen lake when the temperature shifts. The 7th incident was worse. October 8th, a Tuesday evening. I'd been invited to what I thought was a family dinner at the new house. 6 p.m. I brought flowers, a bouquet of fall mums that cost $35, and a homemade apple pie. When I arrived, there were 8 cars in the driveway. Through the windows, I could see people, lots of people, laughing, holding wine glasses. Emily opened the door wearing a black cocktail dress, pearls around her neck. My pearls. The ones David had given me for our 30th anniversary. "Helen," she said, not warmly, more surprised. "What are you doing here?" "You invited me to dinner," I said slowly. "Michael texted yesterday." "Oh, right, I forgot to tell him. We changed it to a dinner party. Margaret's friends from the country club. It's kind of a formal thing." I looked down at my casual pantsuit, my comfortable shoes, my grocery store flowers. "I can change," I said. "I live 20 minutes away. I can go home and—" Honestly, we're full up. The dining table only seats 10, and we've got exactly 10 people. "Maybe next time?" Over her shoulder, I could see Michael in the living room, laughing with Thomas, holding a glass of what looked like expensive scotch. He saw me. Our eyes met. He looked away. "I made pie," I said quietly, holding it out. Emily took it without looking at it. "Thanks. I'll put it in the kitchen." The door closed. I stood there on the porch of the house I'd paid $58,000 to help buy, holding my purse and my car keys, listening to the party I wasn't invited to. I got in my car. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The hurt was too big for tears. It was this heavy, suffocating thing that sat on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I drove to Barbara's house. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "Tell me," she said. I told her everything. The credit card charges, the beach house lie, the closed door tonight. "You're done giving, right?" Barbara said. "Tell me you're done." "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "He's my son. He's a grown man who's allowing his wife and her parents to abuse his mother. There's a difference between being a son and being a user. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Helen, stop. Stop making excuses for people who treat you like garbage." But I did make excuses. Because what was the alternative? Cut off my only child? Spend holidays alone forever? Admit that I'd raised someone who could treat me this way? The 8th incident happened October 12th, a Saturday afternoon. I'd been asked, finally, to come over and help Margaret with some yard work. She wanted to plant bulbs for spring, and apparently I was useful for manual labor. I arrived at 1 p.m. in old jeans and a t-shirt, ready to dig in the dirt. Margaret was on the porch, directing me like a foreman. "The tulip bulbs go along the front walkway, 6 inches apart. The daffodils go in the back, near the fence. Make sure you dig deep enough, at least 8 inches. For 3 hours, I dug holes in the October heat. It was 78 degrees, humid, my back screaming. Margaret sat in a lawn chair, drinking iced tea, telling me when I wasn't doing it right. "Not there, Helen. Too close to the edge. You'll have to redo that section." Emily came out around 3 p.m. with sandwiches for everyone. She handed one to her mother, one to Thomas, who was watching football inside, one to Michael, who'd emerged from his home office. "Want one, Helen?" she asked, almost as an afterthought. "Yes, please," I said, my throat dry. "Oh, sorry. That was the last one. There's some crackers in the kitchen if you're hungry." Crackers. After 3 hours of free labor in their yard. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and stared at my reflection. My face was red, sweaty. Dirt under my fingernails. my hair sticking to my forehead. I looked like hired help. I was being treated like hired help. And then I remembered another October, years ago. October 15th, 1998. Michael was 16. He'd wanted to go to a concert, some band I'd never heard of, and he needed $60 for a ticket. I'd just gotten a big work bonus, and instead of just giving him the money, I took him out for ice cream at Scoops, our favorite place. We sat on the outdoor patio, him with chocolate chip cookie dough, me with vanilla bean. "Mom," he'd said, his teenage face still soft, still open, "why are you so good to me?" "Because you're my son," I said. "Because I love you. Because that's what we do for the people we love." He'd hugged me that day, right there in public, something 16-year-old boys never do. "I'm going to take care of you when you're old," he said. "I promise. You'll never have to worry. I'm going to take care of you when you're old." Standing in that bathroom, hands gripping the sink, I wanted to scream. Where was that boy? Where was the son who'd promised to protect me? When I came back outside, Margaret was inspecting my work. "You missed a spot here," she said, pointing. "And these aren't deep enough. Tulips need room for their roots." Something in me snapped, not loudly, quietly, like a thread pulled too tight finally giving way. "I need to go," I said. "But you're not finished," Margaret said, frowning. "I have a headache. I'm sorry." I gathered my things, my gardening gloves, my water bottle. Michael walked me to my car. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, but he was looking at his phone, scrolling through something. "No," I said. "I'm not okay." He looked up, finally. "What's wrong? When did I become the help, Michael? When did I stop being your mother and become someone you use?" His face hardened. "That's not fair. We're grateful for everything you do." "Grateful? You didn't invite me to your dinner party. Emily lied about a beach house. Your mother-in-law treats me like a servant. She doesn't mean it that way. She's just particular about her garden. And you? What's your excuse?" He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "Mom, you're being dramatic. We've all been stressed. Emily's been working extra shifts. I've got a big project at work. Margaret and Thomas are adjusting to a new city. Cut us some slack." Cut them slack, not me, them. I got in my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Michael already walking back to the house, phone to his ear, probably telling Emily I was being difficult. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every closed door, every forgotten thank you, every casual dismissal. At 2:30 a.m., I got up and went to my home office. I pulled out the folder of documents from the house closing, started reading, really reading. And that's when I saw it. Page 17, Section 4B, in small print. Cosigner assumes joint liability for the full mortgage amount in the event of default by primary borrowers. Cosigner retains legal rights to the property equivalent to ownership percentage based on equity contribution. Equity contribution. I'd put down $58,000 on a $615,000 house. That was 9.4% equity. But wait, I kept reading. Page 23 listed all financial contributors. My $58,000 wasn't just down payment assistance. It was categorized as owner investment, and the mortgage, all $492,000 of it, had my name on it as guarantor. If Margaret and Thomas stopped paying, if they defaulted, I was legally responsible for the entire amount. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone, Googled real estate attorneys in my area. Found one with good reviews, Marcus Chen at Chen & Associates. I sent an email at 3 a.m. "I need an emergency consultation regarding property rights and cosigner status. Please call me as soon as possible." He called at 9 a.m. the next morning, Sunday, October 13th. "Mrs. Morrison, I got your email. Tell me what's going on." I explained everything. The money, the documents, the way I'd been treated. "Do you have copies of all the closing documents?" he asked. "Yes, everything." "Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Bring everything. This is more complex than a phone consultation." Monday, October 14th, 10 a.m. I sat in Marcus Chen's office. a clean, modern space with law books lining the walls. He was younger than I expected, maybe 45, sharp eyes, reading glasses perched on his nose. He read through my documents for 20 minutes while I sat there, hands clasped, barely breathing. Finally, he looked up. "Mrs. Morrison, do you understand what you signed? I thought I was just helping with a down payment. You're not a helper. You're an owner. You have a 9.4% ownership stake in this property based on equity contribution. But more importantly, you're the mortgage guarantor. If the primary borrowers, that's Margaret and Thomas Reed, default on even one payment, the bank can come after you for the full balance." "How much is the balance?" He checked the papers. "As of last month, $485,320. Nearly $500,000. My vision blurred. "Can I remove myself from the mortgage?" I asked. "Not without their consent or a refinance, which would require them to qualify on their own. Given that they're retired and on fixed income, unlikely. But here's what you can do." He leaned forward, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something I'd almost forgotten. Power. You can leverage your legal position. You're not just a co-signer. You're a co-owner. You have rights to this property. If they're not treating you with respect, if they're using your credit cards without permission, if they're essentially defrauding you, you have legal recourse. What kind of recourse? You could demand they buy out your share. You could file for partition of the property. You could, if you wanted to play hardball, call the note due if you can prove they've misrepresented the terms to you. But first, I'd recommend a more direct approach. Confront them with the truth of their legal position. Let them know you're not powerless. I walked out of that office at 11:30 a.m., feeling like I'd woken up from a long, horrible dream. I wasn't a victim. I was an owner. I had power. I had rights. And they had no idea. For the next week, I quietly gathered evidence. I documented every credit card charge they'd made without asking. I saved every dismissive text message. I recorded dates, times, incidents. I built a case like I was preparing for a business negotiation, because that's what this had become, a negotiation for my dignity. And then came the party, the housewarming party for Margaret and Thomas's friends, the party I paid for, the party I was about to be uninvited to. October 19th. The text message. "Mom, don't come. My in-laws don't want you there." But this time, I wasn't going to cry. This time, I was going to act. Because what Michael didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd just had a very interesting conversation with my bank manager. And I'd learned exactly how much power a co-signer with ownership rights actually has. What I discovered was about to change everything. And when I tell you what I did next, you're going to understand why sometimes the quietest people make the loudest statements. After that text message, I didn't collapse. I didn't beg. I sat down at my kitchen table, poured myself a glass of water, and opened my laptop. It was 7:47 p.m., October 19th. The party started at 8:30. I had 43 minutes. First call, Marcus Chen, my attorney. He answered on the second ring. "Marcus, it's Helen Morrison. I need to execute everything we discussed. Tonight." "Tonight?" "Helen, are you sure? Once we start this process..." "I'm standing in my bedroom dressed for a party I paid for, being told I'm not welcome. Yes, I'm sure." "Okay. Give me 30 minutes. I'll draft the cease and desist letter and the notice of ownership rights. I'll also contact the title company about freezing any refinance attempts. But Helen, this is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Marcus. I'm just making it official." Second call. Robert Davidson, my bank manager at First National. I'd banked with them for 32 years. Robert had helped me refinance my house, set up my business accounts, everything. "Robert, I need to freeze all authorized user privileges on my credit cards, every single one, effective immediately." I heard typing. "That's Michael Morrison, Emily Morrison, Margaret Reed, and Thomas Reed. Correct?" "Correct. This will lock them out within 60 seconds. Are you aware they have outstanding charges that posted today?" "How much?" $3,147. Looks like catering services, a liquor store, and a party rental company. The party. They'd charged the entire party to my card. Freeze everything, I said, my voice ice cold. And Robert, I need one more thing. The mortgage at 2247 Oakmont Drive, the one I'm co-signed on. I want to know the exact legal process for calling that note due based on misrepresentation and unauthorized use of my credit. Silence. Then, Helen, that's nuclear. You'd be forcing a sale of the property. Can it be done? Legally, yes. If you can prove they fraudulently obtained your signature or misrepresented the terms, you, as the guarantor and equity owner, can petition the court for immediate resolution, which typically means forced sale or buyout. But you'd need documentation. I have documentation, emails, texts, credit card statements, everything. Then yes, you can do this. But Helen, this is your son we're talking about. My son told me not to come to a party I'm paying for, in a house I own part of. He made his choice. Third call. I didn't make a third call. Instead, I pulled up my credit card app and looked at the charges from the last 6 months that I'd been ignoring, too busy, too trusting to check carefully. June 14th, Williams Sonoma, $121,247. Kitchen appliances I never approved. June 29th, Restoration Hardware, $3,891. Furniture. July 8th, Whole Foods, $427. One grocery trip. July 22nd, Nordstrom, $2,156. Clothing. August 3rd, Best Buy, $2,940. A new television. August 17th, Lowe's, $1,683. Garden supplies. The list went on and on. Page after page of charges I never made, never approved, never even knew about. I added them up. In 6 months, they'd spent $43,127 on my credit cards. $43,127 on top of the $58,000 I'd given them directly. I was shaking, but not from sadness anymore. From rage. Pure, cold rage. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. The caterer just called. They said your card was declined. Can you call the bank? We have guests arriving in 30 minutes. I stared at that text for a full minute. The audacity. The sheer entitlement. I typed back, no. Just that. No. 3 dots appeared immediately, then stopped, then appeared again. Emily. What do you mean no? Helen, we need this fixed now. Me. The card isn't broken. I canceled your access. Emily. Are you kidding me? We have 40 people coming. The food is here. How are we supposed to pay? Me. That's not my problem. My phone rang. Michael. I let it ring. It rang again. I turned off the ringer. At 8:15 p.m., I got an email from Marcus. Subject line, documents ready for your review and signature. I opened the attachment. 3 documents. 1. Cease and desist order regarding unauthorized credit card use. 2. Notice of ownership rights and demand for accounting. 3. Petition for partition or buyout of property. I read every word. Then I signed them electronically and sent them back. File everything tomorrow morning, I wrote. Send copies to all parties involved. At 8:43 p.m., my phone started buzzing nonstop. Calls from Michael, from Emily, from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Margaret and Thomas. I silenced everything and poured myself a glass of wine. I sat in my living room, in the house David and I had bought 43 years ago, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Peace. My doorbell rang at 9:17 p.m. I looked through the peephole. Michael. I opened the door but left the chain on. Mom, what the hell is going on? His face was red, furious. You embarrassed us in front of 40 people. The caterers took the food back. Emily's in tears. Good, I said calmly. Good? Are you serious right now? You told me not to come, Michael. You told me I wasn't welcome at a party I paid for, in a house I own 9.4% of. So I decided if I wasn't welcome as a guest, I wouldn't participate as a bank either. This is insane. Over one text message? One text message. Michael, sit down. I'm not sitting. Sit down. Something in my voice, maybe the absolute flatness of it, made him stop. He sat on my front porch step. I pulled out my phone, opened my credit card statement, and held it up to the door gap. $43,000, Michael, in 6 months. Charges I never approved, a beach house I never knew about, furniture, appliances, clothes, electronics. You've been treating my credit card like your personal slush fund. Emily said you were okay with... I was never asked. Not once did anyone call and say, Helen, can we charge this? You just took, all of you. You took my money, my time, my dignity, and when I showed up tonight, you threw me away like garbage. We didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it, Michael? Explain to me how telling your mother she's not welcome at a party she financed is anything other than cruelty. He was quiet. For the first time all night, he had no excuse, no justification. Things got out of hand, he finally said. Margaret and Thomas, they've been stressed. Emily's been trying to keep everyone happy. I've been caught in the middle. And where was I in that equation? When did you stop thinking about me? You always seemed fine. You never said anything. I shouldn't have to beg my own son to treat me with basic respect. He looked down at his hands. What do you want, Mom? An apology? I'm sorry. Emily's sorry. We messed up. It's too late for sorry, Michael. His head snapped up. What does that mean? It means I've hired an attorney. It means tomorrow morning, you, Emily, Margaret, and Thomas will receive legal documents outlining my ownership rights to the Oakmont property and my demand for a full accounting of all finances. It means every credit card with your name on it is permanently canceled. It means the free ride is over. He stood up, face pale. You can't do that. That house is Margaret and Thomas's home. It's my investment. And investments that don't yield returns get liquidated. You'd kick out elderly people? Your own family? They're not my family, Michael. They made that very clear tonight. And you stood by and let them. Mom, please. Let's talk about this. Come inside. We'll sit down. We'll figure this out. Now you want me inside? Now I'm welcome? I made a mistake. You made a choice, multiple choices, and now I'm making mine. I started to close the door. He grabbed it. What do you want from us? He shouted. What will it take to fix this? And that's when I realized something. He still didn't get it. He thought this was a negotiation. He thought if he said the right words, made the right promises, I'd fold like I always did. I want you to leave my property, I said quietly. I want you to think about the kind of man you've become. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I closed the door, locked it, walked away while he pounded on it, shouting my name. The next morning, October 20th, at 9 a.m., Marcus sent the documents via certified mail and email to all 4 of them. By 9:45, my phone was exploding. I turned it off. By 10:30, Michael was at my office. My assistant, Grace, stopped him at the door. Mrs. Morrison isn't taking visitors, she said. I'm her son. I'm aware. She's still not taking visitors. You can communicate through her attorney, Mr. Marcus Chen. Here's his card. Michael stood there in my office lobby, holding that business card, looking lost. Grace told me later he stood there for 10 minutes before finally leaving. At 2 p.m., I had a conference call with Marcus and Robert from the bank. The Reeds contacted me, Marcus said. Thomas called, very upset, demanding we retract the documents. I explained that's not how legal notices work. What's their financial situation? I asked. Based on what I could find, not good. Thomas's pension is $2,400 a month. Margaret has Social Security, about $1,800, combined monthly income of $4,200. Their mortgage payment on Oakmont is $2,150 a month. That leaves them $1,350 for everything else, food, utilities, insurance, medical, everything. They can't afford that house, I said. Not even close. They've been using your credit cards to bridge the gap. Now that those are gone, they'll default on the mortgage within 60 days. And when they default, the bank can foreclose. But since you're the guarantor, they'll come after you first for the full balance. However, as an equity owner, you can force a sale before it gets to that point. You'd recoup your investment, possibly more depending on current market value. What's the house worth now? Robert pulled up the data. Comparable homes in that neighborhood are selling for $680,000 to $720,000. Conservative estimate, $690,000. After realtor fees and closing costs, you're looking at around $650,000 net. Minus the remaining mortgage of $485,000, that's $165,000 in equity. Your 9.4% share would be about $15,500. But you'd also be released from the mortgage guarantee, which protects you from the $485,000 liability. So I'd lose money, I said. In pure dollars, yes. You put in $58,000, you'd get back roughly $15,500. But you'd eliminate a massive financial risk and legal liability. I thought about it. $42,500 loss. That's what trusting my son had cost me in hard numbers. Or, Marcus interjected, you offer them a buyout. You sign over your ownership stake in exchange for repayment of the full $58,000 plus the $43,127 in unauthorized credit card charges. Total, $127. They have 60 days to pay, or you force the sale. They don't have that money, I said. Then they'll have to get a loan, sell the house themselves, or find someone willing to help them. But that's not your problem anymore. It wasn't my problem. For 2 years, their problems had been my problems. Their wants had been my commands. Their comfort had been my responsibility. Send the buyout offer, I said. 60 days, full repayment or forced sale. Done. That afternoon, Emily showed up at my house. I watched from the window as she rang the doorbell, waited, rang again. She left a note tucked in the doorframe. I waited until she drove away before reading it. Helen, please, you're destroying our family. Margaret had a panic attack last night. Thomas's blood pressure is through the roof. Michael isn't sleeping. This isn't you. You're kind, you're generous, you're loving. Please, let's talk. We can fix this. Emily. I read it twice, then I threw it away. Kind, generous, loving. Those were the words they used when they wanted something, when they needed something. But where were those words when they closed the door in my face? When they forgot my birthday? When they told me not to come to a party I funded? You don't get to abuse someone and then demand they stay kind. Over the next 3 weeks, the calls and messages continued. Michael sent emails. Emily sent texts. Margaret left voicemails, her voice shaking, saying I was breaking her heart. Thomas sent a formal letter through his own attorney, threatening to countersue for emotional distress. Marcus laughed when he read it. Empty threat. They have no standing. On November 8th, 19 days into the 60-day deadline, Michael came to my office again. This time, I agreed to see him. We sat in my conference room, Marcus present as my attorney. Michael looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes. He'd lost weight. His shirt was wrinkled. Mom, he said, his voice hoarse, I'm begging you. We'll pay you back. I'll get a second job. Emily will work extra hours. But please don't force the sale. Margaret and Thomas, they're old. They can't handle another move. You have 41 days to come up with $101,127, I said. That's the offer. We don't have that. You know we don't have that. Then you shouldn't have spent $43,000 of my money without asking. We made mistakes. We're sorry. Sorry doesn't pay bills, Michael. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of theft. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you told me I wasn't welcome in a house I helped buy. He put his face in his hands. What do you want me to say? What magic words will fix this? There are no magic words. There's just reality. You used me, all of you, and now there are consequences. You're my mother. How can you be this cold? I leaned forward. I was your mother when you needed $58,000. I was your mother when you needed credit cards. I was your mother when you needed free labor and free meals. But when it came time to invite me to a party, suddenly I wasn't family anymore. You taught me to be cold, Michael. You taught me that love in this family is conditional, based on what I can provide. He had no answer to that. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. 41 days remained. And I knew, with absolute certainty, they wouldn't make it. The question was, what would happen when the deadline arrived? The 60-day deadline was January 7th, a Tuesday, cold, gray, the kind of winter day where the sky feels like it's pressing down on you. I woke up that morning at 6 a.m., made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table watching the clock. Marcus had told me to expect contact, some last-minute plea, or perhaps even a payment. Nothing came. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. Marcus. They didn't pay, he said. No preamble. The deadline passed at midnight. We're clear to proceed with forced sale. I've already contacted a real estate attorney who specializes in partition sales. We can have the property listed by next week. Do it, I said. Helen, are you sure? This is the point of no return. I've never been more sure of anything. By 10 a.m., the legal notice was filed with the county. By noon, a process server had delivered documents to the Oakmont Drive house, officially notifying Margaret and Thomas that the property would be sold to satisfy the debt and partition the ownership. My phone exploded. 17 missed calls in 2 hours. Voicemails ranging from begging to screaming to threatening. I listened to none of them. At 4:30 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole, expecting Michael. It was Emily alone, mascara streaked down her face. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Helen, please, she sobbed. We'll lose everything. My parents will have nowhere to go. Michael and I will probably have to file bankruptcy. Our credit is destroyed. Please, there has to be another way. There was another way, I said calmly. It was called treating me with respect. It was called not stealing from me. It was called remembering I was a human being, not an ATM machine. We know we messed up. We know. But this punishment, it's too much. It's too severe. Too severe? Emily, you spent $43,000 of my money without asking. You lied to people, telling them I owned property I didn't own. You excluded me from events I paid for. You wore my pearls, the ones my dead husband gave me, without permission. And when I finally said no, when I finally stood up for myself, you called it punishment. I'll pay you back myself. I'll work triple shifts. I'll give you my entire paycheck until... You make $48,000 a year. It would take you 2 years of giving me every single penny you earn, not paying rent, not buying food, not having a life, to pay back what you stole. And that's not even including the original $58,000. She crumpled onto my porch, actually collapsed, sitting on the cold concrete, crying so hard she was gasping. Part of me, a small part, wanted to comfort her. 30 years of being a mother, of being a caretaker, that instinct doesn't just disappear. But I stayed standing. I stayed firm. You made choices, I said quietly. This is the consequence. She looked up at me, eyes red and swollen. Michael said you've become someone he doesn't recognize. Good, I said. Because the person I was, she let people walk all over her. She sacrificed her dignity for scraps of affection. She's gone, and she's not coming back. Emily left. I closed the door. And for the first time in months, I slept through the entire night. The house sold in 43 days. A young couple with twin toddlers bought it for $695,000. After closing costs, realtor fees, and paying off the remaining mortgage, there was $172,000 in equity. My 9.4% share came to $16,168. I also recovered $28,120 from Margaret and Thomas's savings account through a court-ordered judgment for partial restitution of the stolen credit card charges. They kept fighting it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Total recovered, $44,588. Total invested, $101,127. Net loss, $56,539. $56,539. That's what I paid to learn who my son really was. Margaret and Thomas moved to a small rental apartment in a less expensive neighborhood. Their dream retirement in a beautiful home lasted exactly 17 months. Last I heard, Thomas's health had declined significantly. Margaret stopped going to her country club. They couldn't afford the membership anymore. Emily and Michael moved back to their old apartment, the 2-bedroom in Riverside District. Actually, they couldn't afford that either. They're in a 1-bedroom now, on the other side of town, in a neighborhood with bars on the windows. Emily picked up weekend shifts at a second dental office. Michael is working evenings as a rideshare driver to make ends meet. Do I feel guilty? I used to. For about 2 weeks, the guilt was crushing. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about my son struggling, about elderly people displaced, about a family in crisis. But then I'd remember standing on that porch, dressed for a party, reading those words. Don't come. My in-laws don't want you there. And the guilt would vanish. Because here's what I learned. And please, if you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, write this down. You are not responsible for the consequences of other people's choices. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And love that demands you destroy yourself is not love at all. Michael and I haven't spoken in 8 months. He sent one email about 3 months ago through his attorney asking if we could meet for coffee to discuss a path forward. I declined. Maybe someday we'll reconcile. Maybe someday he'll understand what he did and offer a real apology. Not the kind that comes with conditions and requests, but the kind that says, I was wrong, and I hurt you, and I'm sorry. Maybe, but I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not waiting around for it either. Because here's what happened to me after all this ended. I started living. I took the consulting business, the one I'd built with David, and I expanded internationally. I landed 3 contracts in Europe, 2 in Asia. Last quarter, we brought in $1.8 million in revenue. I hired 4 new consultants, all women over 50 who'd been told they were too old, too irrelevant, too invisible. I bought a condo in Barcelona. Nothing huge, just a small 2-bedroom with a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean. I spend 3 months a year there now, working remotely, drinking coffee at sidewalk cafes, taking Spanish lessons, living a life I never imagined at 69 years old. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected while I was busy being a human ATM. Barbara and I take trips together now. Last month, we went to Iceland. We saw the northern lights. We hiked on glaciers. We laughed until our faces hurt. Linda, my neighbor, she and I have dinner every Thursday. Real dinner, not rushed, not distracted, just 2 women sharing food and stories and wine. I joined a book club. I started taking piano lessons, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I volunteer at a legal aid clinic, helping other people navigate property disputes and financial abuse. My life is full, rich, meaningful, and the best part? Nobody in it treats me like I'm disposable. So what are the lessons here? What should you take away if you're watching this and seeing yourself in my story? First, financial abuse is real, even in families, especially in families. If people are using your money without asking, lying about expenses, or making you feel guilty for wanting transparency, that's abuse. Full stop. Second, you cannot sacrifice yourself into being valued. I gave and gave and gave, thinking that if I just gave enough, they'd love me, appreciate me, include me. It doesn't work that way. People who see you as a resource will always want more. There's no amount of giving that turns a user into someone who respects you. Third, saying no is not cruel. Setting boundaries is not punishment. Protecting yourself financially and emotionally is not selfish. It's survival. Fourth, sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you'd take a bullet for. And that's the hardest truth to accept. But accepting it is the only way to heal. Fifth, it's never too late to start over. I'm 69. I rebuilt my life, my finances, my sense of self-worth at an age when society tells women we should be winding down, becoming smaller, accepting less. I'm living proof that's garbage. Sixth, document everything. Every text, every email, every charge, every conversation. I couldn't have fought back without evidence. If you're in a situation where you think something's wrong, start keeping records now. And finally, seventh, you teach people how to treat you. I taught Michael and Emily and Margaret and Thomas that they could use me. I taught them that my boundaries were negotiable. I taught them that I'd accept disrespect as long as they occasionally threw me a crumb of affection. When I stopped teaching that lesson, when I started demanding respect instead of begging for it, everything changed. If you're watching this and you're thinking, that's me, I'm Helen, I'm being used by my family, I want you to do something right now. Drop a comment below. Tell your story. You don't have to use names. You don't have to give details. Just say, I see myself in this. Because you're not alone. There are thousands of us, maybe millions, who've been made to feel like our only value is what we can provide. And we're all waking up. We're all learning to say no. We're all learning that we deserve better. Is my ending a happy one? I don't know if happy is the right word. I lost my relationship with my son. That loss sits in my chest every single day, like a stone. But I gained my self-respect. I gained my freedom. I gained a life where I'm not constantly anxious, constantly trying to prove my worth, constantly walking on eggshells. Would I do it differently if I could go back? Maybe. I'd set boundaries earlier. I'd say no the first time, not the 100th time. I'd trust my instincts when they told me something was wrong. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret standing up for myself. And I don't regret choosing me. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. And I can do that now. The woman looking back at me is strong, scarred, yes, hurt, absolutely, but strong, unbroken, free. And if my story helps even one person find that same strength, then every dollar I lost, every tear I cried, every sleepless night, it was worth it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please share it. Someone in your life might need to hear it. Someone might be standing where I stood 2 years ago, wondering if they're crazy, if they're overreacting, if they should just keep giving. Tell them they're not crazy. Tell them they deserve respect. Tell them it's okay to choose themselves. And remember, you are not an ATM. You are a human being with value that has nothing to do with your bank account. Now go live like you believe that.